If you want to go balls out, have a really awesome and violent, wicked, bloody time, and see Mike Colter and Gerard Butler take down some baddies in the best of ways, this movie is going to be awesome for you. Plane. A pilot finds himself caught in a war zone after he's forced to land his commercial aircraft during a terrible storm. And for this movie, it's WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and it sticks to that DNA very, very well. Plane is probably one of the most exciting times I've had in a theater in a really long time. This movie delivers every single promise that it had in its trailers. It is there to provide you an exciting thrill ride, and it delivers that in spades and nearly nothing else, and I absolutely love that focus. I strive for that kind of focus. I lack that focus. Maybe someday I will have that focus. The one thing that really makes this movie tick is the fact that it sticks to its DNA of just being a stone cold action thriller. Aside from about the first 5 to 10 minutes where you're slowly starting to get to this scenario where this pilot and his passengers are stranded on an island, the movie makes its objective really clear in where it's going. They're stranded on this island. They've got to get off the island. The whole movie is dedicated to that purpose. And because of that focus, it really makes this movie a lot easier to follow and not too undigestible. Sometimes with movies, they try to spread themselves a little bit too thin, and when they do that, they adopt so many branches that things get really tough to follow. But fortunately, when you spend just all this time with pretty much Gerard Butler's character and Brody Torrance and Mike Colter's character, you really get a lot more of a deeper look into just those two characters, and they're by far the most exciting and interesting. I think Mike Colter's character is the more interesting of the two, but having said that, both characters worked extremely well in this movie. And I suppose I want to touch upon next the chemistry between Mike Colter and Gerard Butler. They make this movie sing. Because in essence, when you're spending so much of the runtime with these two, a lot of the movie will rest on their shoulders, and they carry it with absolutely no problem. Like, the movie really gets you to buy into their objective. It's their ride or die with each other. They are lethal weapons and forces to be reckoned with. Mike Colter is the most believable soldier man badass I've ever seen put to screen since Rambo. Like, seriously, the guy just radiated charisma all movie long, and for me, he stole the show. I absolutely loved his performance, by far and away the best in the entire movie. It's not to say that Gerard Butler wasn't bringing it. That man always brings it, but Mike Colter, wow, mad props, my dude. And going more so along the lines of the efficiency of the movie, I really want to touch upon its pacing. This movie doesn't skip a beat. Like I said, once you get past for about the first 5 minutes when it's just trying to set everything up for you, it then sends you off to the races and doesn't let off the gas for the rest of your experience. Meaning about 1 hour, 42 minutes aside from the end credits is just your pedal to the metal. You're really excited to see what these passengers are going to do, and you're really on this thrill ride to see how exactly Gerard Butler and Mike Colter are going to get everybody out of here. And it's really funny within the movie. I know I touched upon its focus quite a little bit earlier, but it'll have these little flashes about our characters, but it'll never delve too far into them. And maybe that's one of the critiques I have for this movie, is the fact that I would have loved to have known just a little bit more about Mike Colter's character. The movie maintains this level of mystery around the character, and I'll actually dive into a line from the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler. Gerard Butler's trying to ask him, well, what happened? And he's like, nobody really cares what happened. And it's funny enough because they never talk about it again for the rest of the movie, so you don't really know what his situation was. You don't really know the circumstance. You learn a little bit about his past and who he was before he was in this situation with all these people, but you don't really know anything about his crime. And to that end, you might either love or hate that aspect of the movie. On one hand, you could love it because the movie is maintaining its focus on these two trying to accomplish their mission. But if you want to get to know Mike Colter's character a little bit more, it can kind of leave you in the dark and have that as an unanswered question. I'm kind of falling somewhere in the middle of that camp. I would have liked to have known what he was being put into his situation for. Like, okay, he was put into cuffs for homicide, but what give me more context. But on the other hand, it just made more time to get these two into their mission and just fighting baddies, which was a lot of fun to watch. And speaking of fighting baddies, I really appreciated this movie for not really pulling any punches when it came to its violence. This movie's rated R, and I don't think that they lean as heavily into the rated R aspect as they could, but I was pretty satiated with the violence that they did choose. This movie really picked the right moments to have blood squibs, to have gunshots, to have explosions, to have blood spatter, and I really think it added to the experience. Like, you could tell when the movie really wanted to make you feel like, ooh, or ah, somebody's getting blown away by a sniper rifle bullet. They really knew when to pick their moments, and the fact that the movie didn't have an overabundance of that, I think made those moments even more special and some of the most memorable points in the movie. Like, seriously, I think every major really awesome takedown from the film I can recall, because the movie really picked its moments and had a lot of really good ones. And all in all, there's very little in this movie that didn't work for me. The only thing I could say is the fact that this movie isn't going to be like life-changing. This movie doesn't attempt to answer any questions or to really make you think at all. For me, I actually don't mind a movie that really gets me to answer some deeper inner meanings, questions, thoughts, ideas. And that might not be you, and that's totally fine. It's just, I have the disclaimer here that if you're going into this movie looking for some deeper meaning, some deeper conversations, this won't be it. But if you're looking for some fun, this film is definitely the ideal experience for you. Another thing I'll touch upon that didn't quite work for me, there's one particular villain in this film that occupies quite a bit of screen time, and I didn't particularly love the way that the actor's performance was portrayed. This character is in the trailer, and I'm keeping it somewhat vague here, but they have one note throughout the entire movie. Basically, it gets to the point where it's blatant overacting, like they're just this face like the whole movie, and it just is, it's a little overcooked, and it gets a little bit like, come on, let's ease up a little bit here. Nobody is that intense all the time. Could have been a direction thing, I don't know, just didn't really work for me. And additionally, in this movie, I think I could have done with a little less of the outside forces trying to come in and rescue them. In the trailer, you can tell that there are people from the United States who are trying to search and find Brody Torrance, played by Gerard Butler, and the rest of these passengers on this island. It's not that inclusion of that group was necessarily a bad choice, it's just maybe a little bit less of it would have been okay. It's one of those things where one of the characters in that particular group, again, was a little overcooked, and I thought a little bit oversaturated to the point where it kind of came off as just kind of an arrogant a-hole for, I guess, valid reasons. But like I said, for me, it just didn't quite work in the movie. It just took away from having more fun with Mike Coulter and Gerard Butler on screen together. Friends, in the end, I'm gonna have to give Plane an 8 out of 10. This is a fun thrill ride that you shouldn't miss. If you want to go balls out, have a really awesome and violent, wicked, bloody time, and see Mike Coulter and Gerard Butler take down some baddies in the best of ways, this movie is going to be awesome for you. Friends, thank you so much for watching another movie review. If you like this or thought it was helpful, I'd be honored if you consider clicking the like button, following me on my other social media platforms, clicking these end cards up above, or the links down in the description below for your viewing pleasure. Once again, I've been Bryce, and until next time, have a great day.